It's a town of about 15,000, well past its prime, and slipping further every year. It has two good places to eat, Marietta's Diner and an Olive Garden with that barely holding on look that chain restaurants always get in small towns. There was a drive-in, but it's really only open from May till Halloween. Gavin has no mall, but it has 3 different strip malls, each one containing a Dollar General. The local high school has its rivalry with Porter and Wiles. The Ladies' Auxiliary puts on charity dances for the local youth twice a year, or hosts a baking contest for this holiday or that celebration. And the town rolls out its colors for the 4th of July and Memorial Day, and tries to attract the usual out-of-towners to their slowly dying town. I know these things because I've covered all of them for the Gavin Chronicler for the last 10 years. I'm Charlie Wade, one of 4 reporters who work for the paper, and I discovered the biggest scoop of my career in the sewers below town. I discovered it, researched it, nearly lost my life for this story, and now I can't say a damn word to anybody. It all comes back to the water in the end. The water and the ground around Gavin. Gavin has a lot of problems, but clean water has always been a big one. The ground beneath the town has a large amount of something in it that makes the water taste brackish and brimstony, and always has. The springs around the town are considered too toxic to drink from, and even bathing in the natural springs has been known to cause health problems, even death. The locals say it's naturally occurring lime deposits, but the contact I've had test the water says it's almost unnatural. The water is the whole reason I'm in Gavin in the first place. I didn't grow up here. This wasn't exactly my dream spot either. I grew up in the Midwest, and bad water is something we have a little experience with. The bigger the city, the worse the water seems to be. I'm sure I don't have to tell you guys about how bad the water has gotten in certain parts of the country. And when the stories started blowing up across the country, I knew it could be my big break. I was working in Boulder, doing a lot of what I do here in Gavin, when I stumbled across an older article about 2 hikers who had died in Gavin earlier that year. They'd been found dead in their tent a week after they had succumbed, and the Gavin Chronicler had blamed the water. We tell out-of-towners every year to boil the water before consuming, but there's always a few who don't listen. The woods around Gavin are beautiful, but they definitely have dangers beyond the brown bears who make the woods their home. I started looking into it and discovered that around 2 to 3 hikers a year actually die from consuming the water around Gavin. Smelling the next Flint, Michigan, in the small rural town, I packed a bag and sent an inquiry letter to the Chronicler to see if they were hiring. Turns out they were. I've been working there as their junior field journalist ever since. It began slowly for me, like I suppose it does with a lot of people. The town isn't large, like I've said, but the people are unique. The younger residents rarely have to deal with acne or facial blemishes. Some of them with scars from accidents find them gone after bathing or drinking from the purified water in town. Most of them report no side effects from the water that are worse than sulfur burps or the odd rash on the inside of the elbows or the backs of the knees. They grow up fine, most of them, and the ones who leave report that the rashes and the burps stop once they stop consuming the water. The residents who stay, however, undergo a startling change in their early 20s. It starts with the hardening of the skin. The skin seems to thicken, calcify almost, and since much of the town's trade is logging or mining, they see this as a good thing. I have a first-hand account from a logger who claims his partner missed a swing with an axe and caught him in the leg, just below the calf. He claims, and his logging partner backs him up, that instead of cutting him open, It bounced off and actually chipped the head of the axe. We thought the boss would be mad, but he says it happens sometimes and just told us to get back to work. As they get older, their arms shorten and their legs compact themselves. They start losing the use of their elbows and knees, though it doesn't really slow them down much. They adapt, or they pick up a power chair from Edward Foster, who does just fine for himself in a town like Gavin. He's very aware that he's taking advantage of people, but when I pointed this out to him, he just shrugged. People need 'em, I got 'em. Buy one or get the hell out. He said this from the seat of one of his nicest models, his knees now so swollen that he looks like someone in the late stages of gout. Sometimes, I guess, it's good to be on top. Speaking of being on top, let's not forget about the only family in town that seems to be immune to these debilitating changes, the Gavins. The Gavins have been Gavin's first family for 10 generations. The founder, Chadwick Gavin, settled the land in 1820 and started the first sawmill in the area. The family expanded into mining and now owns 3 of the largest in the area. They mine gold, iron, and even a few precious stones, but the wealth flowing out of Gavin has been slow lately. It's a shame, but in many ways, the wealth we have used to make the town flourish was also its downfall. The mines went deep, the gold and precious gems flowed for a time, but something in the operation tainted the groundwater, unlocking the lime deposits that now slowly kill Gavin. That's the through line, at least, but I've had that water tested independently, and that's not what my guy discovered. The water test's positive for lime, yes, but also something like iron, but way too pure to be in the water. There are also half a dozen other things that shouldn't occur in nature. The sample you sent me, Chuck, is borderline radioactive. I'd wager that a lot of Gavin's citizens suffer from premature hair loss and probably growths on their skin if they live past adolescence. That was Dr. Klein, a professor at a large college in Colorado that will remain nameless. He's analyzed water samples before for me, helping me determine who's been fudging the water treatment budget so they can line their pockets, but he'd never given me a report like that. He had wanted to meet in person, had been pretty insistent that he didn't want to share what he'd found over the phone. So I flew out to Boulder one weekend to have dinner and collect the reports. This is unlike anything I've ever seen before, he told me, over some authentic pasta, more authentic than what I've been eating lately at least. No one should be living in Gavin. No one. If these Gavins aren't using the mines for dumping, then I'll eat my degree. There is something very wrong under the surface of Gavin, and I'm not sure you should pursue it. He told me this about a month before he went missing. The circumstances of that disappearance are very mysterious, and a little frightening, since he had disappeared about a week after talking to me. I can't help but feel like it's my fault somehow. It's like the information he gave me is the reason for this sudden abduction, but it also makes me all the more determined to investigate. There are no strange trucks coming and going from Gavin. There are no chemical plants or major factories in the area. We don't seem to have any industrialists or mob types hanging around looking to offload chemicals to a limping along mining town. To me, there was only one thing to do, and that was to investigate the mines. Now, I'm no geologist, and I'm certainly no Indiana Jones type, but I do have a map of the local mines from the Parks Department and a new pair of hiking boots. The maps are given out to hikers so they can avoid the old shafts and not die horrifically, a cost taken on by the town of Gavin. So, I set out with my recorder, my cell phone, and a couple of fresh external batteries, and an indomitable will to chase this story to its conclusion. I only came back with one of those, and I wouldn't keep it for long. I decided to head to Groot's Grat, one of the oldest mines in the area. It had been opened by the original Gavin in Gavin, a throwback to his Dutch roots, and it was supposed to be one of the deepest mines in the region. It had been closed in 1904 after some kind of cave-in, but I had a theory that it connected to the other cave systems in the area. They had opened it in 1835, and it was supposed to be deeper than any mine had a right to be. Old accounts said it was the one that had seen most of the wealth from the operation. Something that deep likely had some access to the groundwater in the region. It was a strenuous hike through some pretty bad terrain, but I finally came to the opening. The shaft is mostly just a hole in the ground, so my first order of business was to secure a line so I didn't fall in and break both my legs. The ground up here is pretty solid, so it wasn't hard to the 20 or so feet of rope to the base of the shaft. When my feet touched down, I felt an overwhelming sense of vertigo. It felt like I'd descended farther than 20 feet, and as I switched on the light I'd brought, I could swear I had been transported to the center of the earth. It was noticeably warmer here, 5 to 6 degrees at least, and the walls didn't seem like your average mine to me. They were pitted, the ground around them seeming to have calcified into something like concrete. They were sturdy enough that I didn't feel too bad about going in, but I still turned and rammed a pin in so that I could run a rope back to the entrance. Okay, maybe I had a few more things than a tape recorder in my will. I'd also brought like a week's worth of rations, those little MRE meals, and enough water for 5 days if I wasn't greedy about it. I'd also brought climbing gear, ropes, pinions, and a sturdy hammer. I had enough rope for a decent descent, or a decent climb, and I figured I'd run it to the entrance so I could find my way back out. I did not want to get trapped in here and starve to death, so I figured that when the rope ran out, I'd just turn around. I also had some seal bags so I could put samples in, and I chipped off a little of the solid mass here to do just that. It didn't take me long to start finding abnormalities down here. I had barely gone 20 feet in when I noticed drag marks on the wall. Well, drag marks might not be the right word. These were more like gouge marks. It looked like something had sliced lines into the walls with its bare hands, and the jagged lines on the ground seemed to add credence to it. I proceeded with caution. Anything that could do that would probably mess me up pretty bad, but I suspected something less supernatural. I suspected that if I went to the end of the tunnel, I would find some sort of storage ground for something they would rather I not see. My guess was drugs or some kind of toxic waste. The drug waste might explain some of the abnormalities I saw in town, but then there was the usual lack of trucks or other methods of transportation. The waste being there would kind of hint that the townspeople had something to do with it, especially the Gavins, and as I came to the end of the tunnel, I found the last thing I expected. It was a mining operation, but a very strange one. The shaft began to corkscrew, looking for all the world like the patterns of a giant drill in the rotating path. I saw little honeycombs of something, an amber substance that shimmered in the pale light cast by it. There were these green strips of something that glowed running along the walls. They ran all the way down, the green glow making me a little woozy as I watched it descend. By that green glow, I could see something moving. They looked like, I don't really have a good way to describe them. They were like stubby little boulders, I guess. They waddled on their tiny legs, but when they extended their small arms to the rock, the sound of their burrowing was frightening. It sounded like a power drill, though I'm not sure how they made the rock squeal like that. They would work their way into it, pushing their whole body into the task so they could make a hole large enough to get at the strange liquid within. I wasn't really sure what they were doing, and I realized that I would need to get closer. I snuck as quietly as I could, the smooth surface of the bore providing no rocks or debris for me to kick and give myself away. It was as if The stones had been smoothed out with tools, leaving the path completely clear and easy to navigate. I walked past one of the undulating reservoirs with the amber-colored liquid in it, and it took everything I had to walk away from it without touching it. When I came to the creature that was working and saw what it was pulling out of the wall, it all made sense. He was dragging that amber-colored stuff from the space, and it looked like taffy as he began to roll it around his stubby arm. He wound it until he had a strange, malformed bicep of the liquid, and then he turned and took it to the reservoir. I hadn't thought this far ahead, and pressed myself against the wall as tightly as I could. If the creature saw me, it made no sound, and when it placed its arm into the reservoir, the amber liquid seemed to flow into it and leave its arm completely clean. Then it turned and went back to work, and that was when I got a good look at it. It might have looked like a rock person, a darker version of Ben Grimm from the Fantastic Four comics, but it could have also been any of the residents of Gavin. The thick bodies and the calcified skin, the short arms and legs with no joints, the strange craggy faces. They were all here, or at least they would be someday. This was what was happening to them. They were becoming these creatures so they could harvest whatever it was from the walls and put them into these reservoirs. I didn't know what the reservoirs were, but I knew I needed to get the hell out of here and tell somebody what was going on. This was the reason for the bad water in Gavin, and I would bet anything that it was also what was turning people into those creatures. This was way beyond Pulitzer Prize stuff. This was a full-blown mystery that I had solved here, and something that ran far deeper than any writing prize. This was investigative journalism on a cosmic scale, and I had to get out of here so I could tell people what was going on. I managed to get back to the entrance I had come through, but when the men in the hazmat suits grabbed me, I was pretty sure that I was never going to see the sun again. Instead, they took me out of the mines and stuck me in a little room with a different man in a blue hazmat suit. He was smiling, offered me something to drink, but I could smell government from a mile away. This guy had the look of a fixer, and I was not about to get disappeared before my story could be told. Mr. Wade, we were worried that something like this would happen when you came to Gavin. We had really hoped that you'd decided to settle down and maybe conduct some less strenuous journalism, but it appears you've decided to put your nose where it doesn't belong. I think that would be for the people of Gavin to decide, wouldn't you? The man in the blue hazmat suit made a sound that would have been inappropriate at a fancy dinner party. What's to tell? Oh, sure, they become workers in a mine operation they don't exactly understand, but so what? No one's being hurt, and as you deduced, the water in Gavin does this all on its own. It's better for these people that they make a little money out of it and keep their families fed and safe. They can't go anywhere after they become like that, and the United States has a vested interest in the stuff they're pulling from the ground. What kind of a vested interest? I asked, not really expecting an answer. I'm afraid that's classified, but I will tell you that talking about any of this is likely to get you a cell in Leavenworth. Not one of the nicer ones either. One of the dark ones, where the food comes into a flap and there are no visitors. Whatever it is that you think you saw down there, I would suggest you keep it to yourself. I should have you eliminated, but the higher-ups are pretty sure that you put some kind of contingency plan into play in the untimely event of your death. So, we're just going to discredit the hell out of you if you spread this to the public. No paper in the United States, and most of the ones outside of it, would touch a story like this, and anyone who would believe you is too disreputable to be taken seriously. You can tell all your little friends on the internet if that's what you want to do, but it won't do you any good. Gavin belongs to us, and if you don't want to be a part of that, I would suggest you pack your bags and go somewhere else. I tried to argue with him, but he was right. He took all my samples, the evidence I'd collected, and sent me back up the trail with little more than a wave. If you've made it this far, you probably don't believe me either. I know how crazy the story sounds, but it's the truth. Gavin is a town where not much happens right on the surface. It's a town of secrets. It's a town of danger. And if you don't want to get caught up in it, you might want to steer clear. I'm going back to the Midwest. I think I've had enough investigative journalism for a lifetime.
Good evening, everyone. It's me, Dr. Plague. Thank you so much for joining us for tonight's show. If you think you might like a little more spooky in your life, then please feel free to click on one of the videos we have up here. Maybe look at one of the playlists if you're trying to get caught up. I know, there's so many videos on the channel. There's so many series that are going at the same time. Sometimes you just need a little refresher course, and I gotta say, I always enjoy the views. If you're not subscribed, feel free to hit that subscribe button. Maybe hit the bell so you don't miss anything. We upload a lot on this channel, so you won't want to miss a single story as they come out. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click on the Amazon link down there. There's quite a few books in my Amazon account. You can have a look, and if you'd like a signed copy, get up with me through email, and I'll be happy to work something out with you. Also, there's links to my Patreon, and you can become a member on the channel if you'd like your spooky a little bit early. Patrons and members on the $5 tier get their videos 12 hours early. That's in the morning as opposed to in the evening. Patrons at the $10 level also get a signed copy of my book anytime I write one. Speaking of my patrons, you should see them appearing right now. Just wanted to take a minute to say how much I appreciate all of you. Patrons, subscribers, however you give to the channel. I really appreciate everything you do, and it truly touches me that you have chosen to support the channel in this way. Well, that's enough for now. Till next time, Dr. Plague, signing off. Have a wonderful evening.